All right. Welcome, everyone, to Working People, a podcast about the lives, jobs, dreams, and struggles of the working class today. Working People is a proud member of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and is brought to you in partnership with In These Times Magazine and the Real News Network. This show is produced by Jules Taylor and made possible by the support of listeners just like you. My name is Maximilian Alvarez, and today we're talking about an urgent crisis and a scourge that is affecting working class communities around the country. Today, we're talking about data centers, and we're talking about what it means for you and your community when one of these loud, polluting, energy and water guzzling behemoths comes to your town. And we're going to be talking with people who are experiencing this firsthand right now. But we're also going to be talking about how we talk about data centers and the communities that they're affecting. Because, recently I was scrolling on Instagram and Facebook and I saw this viral clip from a news report that was going around with a recognizable face at the center of it. Now, the clip was from an MS Now report, and just take a listen to it for yourself.
Quarter-mile away, Cheryl Shadden says the noise is as loud as ever.
It's like living on the edge of Niagara Falls, or you're on a runway next to a jet that's taking off, but this jet doesn't take off.
Morning, noon, night, she even hears it in her bedroom, and it's changed everything about how she lives her life, including her politics.
Red or blue, if you vote against data centers, we vote for you.
A lifelong conservative, she's so angry, she refuses to vote for Trump-backed Attorney General Ken Paxton, who clinched the GOP nomination for Senate Tuesday. Instead, she's all in for James Tallarico, a Democrat seeking to flip a seat controlled by Republicans since 1993. You're willing at this point to forego basically every conservative issue and let the Senate fall into the hands of Democrats if that's what it takes to kill data centers.
Yep. My entire community is going to break rank. Everybody. All of us. We've had enough.
Now, as you guys heard from that clip, the original report named the woman being interviewed there. But in the viral post with that clip in it, the woman was simply named as a, quote, Republican voter. And that just pissed me off. And, the kind of comments that people were leaving on these posts by the hundreds and thousands were just so absurd and gross and so stupidly and unhelpfully partisan. So many folks seem to think that the explosion of data centers is only happening in one type of community and that those communities somehow deserve it if they voted one way or another. But listen, how people respond to this crisis in the next election cycle will be very important. But we also need to get it through our skulls that this is bigger than what happens in the next election. And data centers are not just red state or blue state problems. This is a working class problem, and we all need to take it seriously. And when I was seeing that clip going around, all of the discourse around this has been especially gross and infuriating for me because we actually know the so-called Republican voter in that news segment. Her name is Cheryl Shadden. She's a human being, not a quote-unquote Republican voter. She's a registered nurse anesthetist and a resident of Granbury, Texas, who lives right next to the site of a massive Bitcoin mine. And we've had Cheryl on this show before, and we've spoken with her and other members of her community about the hell that they are living through after this giant, loud, environmentally destructive Bitcoin mine moved into their neighborhood, and more data centers are now invading their area. And I'm really grateful to be joined today again on the show by Cheryl and more of her neighbors from Hood County, Texas. But we are also joined today by folks who are living here and fighting against data centers here in our home state of Maryland. So let's meet our incredible panel of guests. And I want to shut up and ask y'all if you can start by introducing yourself to the audience here.
Hi, Max. I'm Cheryl Shadden. I live in Granbury, Texas. I'm a certified registered nurse anesthetist. I live in a rural area. I am also born in Maryland. I was born in Bethesda, Maryland. I lived there until I was in my 20s. And so I remember Maryland quite well. And I remember Texas quite well before this happened to all of us as well.
I am Karen Pearson. Thanks, Max, for having us again on the show. I appreciate you and your passion. I am a licensed professional counselor. I live in Granbury, Texas, too. Actually, Cheryl is my neighbor. I live about 800 feet as the crow flies to Marathon Bitcoin. And then just a little bit further, right next door to it, is Wolf Hollow Gas Power Plant. I live out here on 12 acres with my parents. They have been here 30 plus years, and I've been here 21 years. Most definitely, this has come in and really just unraveled our peace out here, shaken us as far as what it means for our rural area that we invested in retiring at. Also, too, just, water supplies, noise pollution, vibrations, things that it also has contributed to as far as health wise. So it's definitely something that in this area, I say it's more like environmental euthanasia that we are experiencing. Definitely a concern, especially with more in our future that is moving in right on top of us here.
I'm Craig Jackson. I live in Granbury, Texas as well. I'm actually 7 miles from Karen and Cheryl, but I'm also 300 feet from a proposed data center that's going to be on 2,000 acres in the city of Granbury. I'm actually listed as a plaintiff on a lawsuit against the city for breaking Open Texas Meetings Act, as well as several other violations. But as far as this whole situation, it's been a full-time job fighting this, and along with all my other neighbors that have been battling the Bitcoin mine, we've actually started a homestead and lost several animals due to the infrasound and noise that's been produced off of it. And you wouldn't think 7 miles would have that effect, but we can get more into that conversation later. But all of this has basically disrupted our way of life and why we moved out here to be away from the city and to start a homestead in the process.
I'm Dr. Shannon Wolf, and I'm also the precinct chair in the community that Karen and Cheryl live in, and that's how I met them 3 years ago. And so I live in Granbury, Texas. Part of what I've looked at over 3 years is and lack of awareness by so many people at just the devastation that the Bitcoin mines can often cause. And then the data centers that are coming in, there are 8 or 9 data centers coming into a very small community, or very small county rather. And there seems to be no way of stopping them. And I don't know that Hood County is a lot different than any other county in America. I hear reports of the same kinds of issues happening in Oklahoma and in Mississippi and in places up north. And so I think it's going to take all of us working together to stop the onslaught.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Max, for being here. Thank you all for inviting me. My name is Micaiah Lloyd. I'm a resident of Charles County, Maryland. A data center was proposed in my neighborhood November 17th of last year. And me and my county have been fighting tirelessly to make sure that they don't even have the zoning rights to be in our neighborhood. So that's where we are in the fight in Southern Maryland. I'm just a girl. I'm 24 years old. I'm trying to build my own wealth. I'm trying to build my own career. And I talk about generations a lot because I feel like my generation is in the fight for our lives right now. I feel like we're in the fight for our future. I used to coach little kids. I played soccer my whole life, and I coached 4, 5, and 6s. And I'm also fighting for them right now. We're fighting for them. We're fighting for them to be able to grow up and breathe clean air and not be surveilled, and to drink clean water. I don't know what the future will look like in about 40 years if data centers take over this nation. I've been an activist my whole life. When Trayvon Martin was killed, it really radicalized me, and I've been in the streets protesting since I was about 15. I've always been wondering, what is it going to take for the working class to unite? What is it going to take for us to come together? What's going to be that one issue? And I know that data centers are that issue. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be networking, especially with people who could possibly be read and who could possibly be very different from me, but we're all human beings. And I think this one issue will really connect us. So I'm very excited about that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hillary Gonzalez. I am an eco-poet and author. I've lived in Maryland for the past 10 years now, though I originally am from Southern Virginia. For the purposes of this interview, I'm going to let my accent slip. I've been fighting Johns Hopkins DSAI Institute, which is their data science and artificial intelligence institute, for the past 3 years now. I can step outside of my front door and literally look at where they're constructing it. And from the very beginning, they told us, oh, this is going to be so good for your neighborhood, so good for your community. I have yet to see that. I've only seen environmental harm that their construction has caused. And now we've learned from the Baltimore Business Journal that they're also planning a data center for East Baltimore. So my fight has switched from fighting just DSAI to now fighting for the entire city, because I don't want this in any part of the city.
Well, my God, thank you all so much for being on this panel together. It is really incredible to have you all here together, even if it's just for an hour. And I want to make the most that we can out of that hour. So I wanted to go back around the table and ask, starting with our neighbors in Granbury, if y'all could give our listeners and anyone out there listening now, a sort of quick and dirty reminder of, what the hell has happened to your communities, in these recent years with these Bitcoin mines and data centers. Like, how is it affecting people? What does it look like over there? And how are you living your lives when these behemoths are coming into your communities?
I've lived here in my home for 35 years. It was nice and quiet. I could walk outside of my home at any time of the day or night. You could hear birds chirping. You could see your animals outside. And it was just a quiet, peaceful environment. Now, sitting here in my office, I can hear the crypto mine churning through my walls. I myself personally have had permanent conduction hearing loss. I will never get that hearing back. We have motion sickness, dizziness, nausea. We don't sleep at night. Even trying to go to sleep with a TV on or a radio on and fans on high, you can't go to sleep. You can't stay asleep. This noise, sound and infrasound, it travels through your walls, through your windows. It shakes your home. And this is just the noise from the crypto mine that's turning into a data center now, adding 2 more hyperscale data centers. This doesn't include the gas plant that they're powered into. This doesn't include the explosions from their valves when they can't carry a load. This doesn't include a third gas power plant coming here and building and traffic 24/7 and literally 5,000 trucks per month. That doesn't include the dust clouds. This doesn't include the air pollution. Here in the state of Texas, because Texas is so special, we only test air pollution, and they don't really even test it. They model it. It's modeled in isolation. So even though the gas power plant that's directly across from my home, even though their pollutants go right to threshold, like 0.4 from being above a dangerous threshold. So that power plant is looked at individually versus the power plant that's right next to it that rolls out acid rain and all of that. That's looked at individually as well. And so even though both of these 2 power plants operate right at threshold, they're not looked at in combination. And now a third gas power plant is coming in here that we fought hard against. And they're going to be an 8 turbine gas power plant. They're going to roll out some acid rain as well. And this doesn't even begin to account for the water use. Right now, just the 2 power plants across the street from me use 1.5 million gallons of water per day off of our lake and our river and spit it back out. When they spit it back out, it's minimally treated. It's still hot water, so it's causing problems in our lake and in our rivers. And that flows on down from here. So the pollution here in Granbury, the water is actually cleaner up above Granbury. It becomes seriously polluted right here at Granbury, where we have 3 gas power plants that are pulling off of the water sources here and dumping back in. We're going to have 4. And so if you calculate the water usage, even though you'll have the crypto mine and the data centers telling you we're not using water, you are using water by proxy if it's taking 2.5, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million gallons of water to provide you power. So they are using water, even if not directly. And if you look closely at all of these hyperscale data centers, and they'll tell you they're closed loop water systems. Well, that's like saying your car is a closed loop water system. You do have to flush the radiator out in your car and you have to refill it. That's not closed loop if you do that. And if you look at all of these hyperscale data centers coming in, they all have retention ponds behind them. That's basically a big septic tank. A retention pond does not mean closed loop. It means we're going to let this nasty water sit here and draw mosquitoes and every other problem known to man. And that doesn't mean we're going to protect the rivers and the tributaries and your health. So air pollution, light pollution, water pollution, erosion, it doesn't just affect Republicans. It doesn't just affect independents, and it doesn't affect just Democrats. It affects us all of us.
And I gotta tell any of y'all listening, those types of retention ponds filled with toxic stuff, they are all over this country, baby. Whether it's coal ash tailings ponds that have like toxic heavy metals in them, whether it's, like lagoons full of like hog waste, that has so many nitrates in it that it causes massive algae blooms. Like, you don't want to know how much of a toxic soup we are all living in, but it's our job to try to educate ourselves about this. And so please, folks from Granbury, keep educating us. Let's toss it to Karen. Tell us more about how this has affected you guys and your lives.
Thank you. Yes, I probably want to speak more towards my parents than anything. They're both 83. And for anyone who has been out here, everyone knows that their front porch is a gathering place. They enjoy sitting out there, watching the birds, the deer, just a menagerie of wildlife. My mom's a big bird watcher. And so many of those animal populations that were thriving out here at one time are not so much anymore. A couple of other things, and Cheryl mentioned this, balance issues, the noise pollution. So again, on our porch, sitting out there and having conversation in the evenings with my parents, it's very hard to do. My dad's lost about 70% of his hearing. And we can't sit out there and just have a typical conversation like what we used to without him either not hearing any of it or, constantly having to repeat. I think some of the other issue is because of the noise at night, and if the wind is blowing just right, especially if there's a south wind, it is like it megaphones over to our place. So my parents don't sleep. And they have an upstairs, their bedroom is upstairs, and it's kind of eye level with the plants, and it's a megaphone. I mean, it's so loud in their bedroom at night, that they don't sleep. And so then obviously during the day that causes a lot of fatigue. I think mentally on them, it's extremely hard to think about what their future looks like. This is not what they planned for retirement. It's hard on me to watch what they go through because they've invested everything into this property. This is where they thought that they would live out the last parts of their life, and which has been my commitment to them, is to help them with giving them the best quality at the end of their life. And so I feel pretty helpless a lot of times. I can't help them. I can't make the noise go away. I can't help them sleep better. I can't help them. And so being in the fight with my neighbors, with Shannon and, government, trying to just have people to understand what this is doing to us on a personal level. What does this do? And man, it's like you can't get anyone to understand that. You can't get anyone to, I don't want to say anyone, but as far as government and stuff, um, it's like there's no empathy there, on a daily basis. No one sees the mental decline of my parents. No one sees that, they can't sleep or why. And that's just real hard. It's hard to watch them go through that. So that's where, I guess, again, I go back to that environmental euthanasia. And, I feel bad for my neighbors who really don't speak out for themselves because they can't, for one reason or another, maybe lower socioeconomic purposes. But this is in their backyards, in their back bedroom. And so I know I've talked to them how the impact is on their lives. They don't sleep. There's other health issues. I'm not going to, don't want to labor all the time for that. But, there's just so much on a personal level that it ruins lives. It really does. And it's not what you expected. It's not what's being talked about. There's no transparency about how this impacts personal lives. It's just not there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if anything, this whole battle's not just pissed off a bunch of people, but brought a whole bunch of people together. So speaking on the Bitcoin mine, we noticed it 2024. We moved into our house at the end of 2022. So we got immediately, my wife's dream's been ducks and chickens. So we got ducks and chickens, set everything up. All of a sudden, more eggs than we can get rid of. In 2024, Marathon takes over the Bitcoin mine, and we notice production decreasing, and chickens dying, and ducks dying, and slowly. And then one morning, we woke up, and it was almost like a massacre because we had micro chickens and micro ducks. They all within 24 hours, all of them had passed away. And what we discovered was that the infrasound coming off the Bitcoin mine that Cheryl and Karen and everybody else in the area is hearing is actually traveling with the wind. But also when we have heavy cloud cover, it creates a sound barrier wall that is basically just bouncing off. And low frequency sound bounces differently than high frequency. Low frequency actually travels, and I'm actually uphill. So it just really, as sound waves get tighter and tighter, as if anybody can visualize it, it just literally, we hit it, and there's nights I hear it, and it's like a whale that is outside just moaning, and it's in spurts. And there's been several nights. My kids, they're 5 and 8, and we have a elementary school just a mile down the street from me, a high school 2 miles away. And so, there's kids in this entire neighborhood. I've talked to other parents that are like, man, my kid's just not sleeping through the night, or my kids are having a hard time sleeping. Turns out that whale sound is what they're hearing. And so, fast forward January of this year, we discovered New Year's Eve night that there was a data center being proposed for our city. And lo and behold, it's 300 feet from my house. And so if literally from the corner of my property to where it meets the fence line, the Dallas Cowboys could play, and they might lose that game, but they could play there. And so either way, what's been frustrating for us is my entire life now revolves around research, and which I do in my job daily anyway for other people, but now I'm doing it for something that is literally threatening our way of life. And so not just, we have a community well. And so one small tap in the wrong direction, our well's dry, and we're going to be Meta in Georgia all over again. Turns out this is a Meta funded data center project, Patriot, which, as more information has been coming out, we have been seeing the audacity and arrogance, and maybe even some ignorance from our city council or city manager, city attorney. It's been nothing but propaganda coming from the city side as well. So all this positive benefits about data centers, and they couldn't even get our own state representative to say something positive. They had to get the state representative from Fort Worth to say something positive. And he said, well, data centers are how your alarm clocks work. That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. My alarm clock lives internally on my phone if I use my phone. And it just shows the audacity and how far they're trying to propaganda all of this to the point where we as a community have been coming together. And now I'm listed on the lawsuit against the city. One of those things I never thought I would have to say, that as a county resident, I am suing a city that is affecting my everyday life. Now, my county, my home and neighborhood is a county island. I don't vote for these people. I don't even get a say in what these people do, but they're affecting my home. And so we're fighting back. And we're even doing a recall. Hopefully, we get enough signatures by that deadline. But we've done as far as signatures for no confidence in the city manager and city attorney. And every time we turn around, we're just met with arrogance or just careless attitudes of, when people can go back, look at the city of Granbury, city council meetings, and you'll see on the January 6th meeting, it was literally everyone in that room was frustrated because we were told specifically, only talk about the dirt when it came to annexing this property. And that was the shot heard around the entire county of like, okay, this fight just became personal for all of us.
I was at that meeting, and that's where we also heard the city manager, I guess that's what he is, saying that he did not care about us and something along those lines. So yeah, I heard all of that at that meeting, and it was mouth dropping.
Yeah, I think what he actually said was, I'm not scared of you, is what he said. Karen, I think you and I were sitting next to each other.
We sat next to each other. We sure did. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And to add to it, we have so many emails from the city manager, from the former director of development, from about meetings at a data center where all the city council members were there, all of them in the same building, same time, same place. How they all got there is a different story, but we have all of this data and all of these trails and all this communication that shows all this was premeditated. And we're seeing now other cities are fighting this. And so one of the things, our hope and prayer is not just to undo the annexation, which just undoes all of it, but if we can establish that, hey, this is how business should not be done, hopefully we can help other towns in this fight as well.
So, as I said before, I've been in this fight for about 3 years, maybe a little more than 3 years. And I met Cheryl when I was running for precinct chair, and she asked what I was going to do about the data centers, and I had no idea what she was talking about. And so I went to look at this data center that was causing so much grief. And I had this aha moment because I thought there was a train track near my house that I just hadn't found yet. And I could hear it really well in the wee hours of the morning, or sometimes really, really late at night. My husband would and I would talk about, where is this train? Because it was this rumbling that we heard. And my husband and I drove past this Bitcoin mine, and we had this light bulb moment. We don't have a train. We have a Bitcoin mine. And Craig was talking about waking up and around somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning on some mornings, and I will have a migraine. Just all of a sudden, I will have this migraine headache from this Bitcoin mine. And so we've been fighting this thing for about 3 years. Cheryl and I, with some other people, have even gone down and spoken at the state capitol to a subcommittee. We have written letters. We have had town halls. I can't even begin to list all the things that we have done to raise awareness. And I would say for the past 2.5 years, Cheryl, I can't talk for you, but it feels like I'm beating my head against the wall. It seems like people say, yeah, that's tough. But that's not me, and I've got my life to live, and they go on and do their thing. Well, now that it's all of Granbury, people are waking up. Now, I don't blame them. People have lives to live. But now we have 8 to 9 of these hyperscale data centers coming into one of the very smallest counties in the state of Texas. We are very small, and these hyperscale data centers, one of them is about the same size as a small city. We're talking massive data centers taking over ranches. They're taking over areas where there is protected wildlife. There's one area that they're trying to industrialize where we have bald eagles nesting there. And we can't even get EPA to pay attention to them tearing down the trees and displacing these bald eagles. I've never seen anything like this in my life. So with these hyperscale data centers that are coming in, we've realized that our county does not have we thought our county didn't have the right to zone or to protect ourselves from them. And I think that there have been some people that have truly dropped the ball in elected officials who have truly dropped the ball in this, and they have not protected citizens. I see things happening in my area that I think it's going to change this beautiful, beautiful area. And I think there's no coming back from that. And we're talking about endangered species that live here. There's a species of bird that lives here that's endangered. And I have no idea why people who are supposed to be protecting don't protect. And Cheryl brought up the gas power plant. And when your listeners are maybe facing some of these things coming in, you cannot separate these data centers from their power source. Those two things are two parts of the very same conversation. So the data centers in our area are having to bring in their own power source. And so they're building gas power plants, but they are using the very bare minimum of standards in protecting the environment from any type of pollutants. And so one of the other things that Cheryl was mentioning was that gas power plants, the permitting entity in Texas only looks at each individual power plant and not take into account the cumulative impact of multiple multiple power plants. So, for example, in Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth, Texas, it's pretty large. They have one gas power plant inside Tarrant County. And right now in my very small precinct, which is 5-6 miles square, we have 3 gas power plants with another one coming in. So that's 4 gas power plants now. We have 2 battery energy storage systems, which are the best plants or facilities. We've got a solar farm that is coming in, and all of this has been happening within just a very short period of time. And the residents are trying to stop it, and we have no way of stopping it. So that's what we're facing. But I'm hearing people from across the nation say the same thing.
Well, and speaking of which, Micaiah, Hillary, that's how I met both of you, is because you two are both folks in communities here in Maryland fighting these things coming in. So could you tell us more about how you got involved in those fights and what's actually happening in your communities with these data centers?
You know, for DSAI, it's been a roundabout fight to get me into the data center fight. I've always been against them, but for the longest time, Johns Hopkins was claiming DSAI isn't a data center. And so we have been fighting them by saying, well, you can't study AI without a data center being involved. So where's the data center? Where are you going to build it? Where is it being planned for? And as far as the construction itself, you've seen massive stormwater events just constantly, every single time it rains. And I think when people hear stormwater runoff, they think like, oh, who cares? It's not that big of a deal, except that we are located directly next to Stony Run Park, which is a tributary of the Chesapeake Bay. So everything that goes into Stony Run eventually goes out to the Chesapeake Bay. And stormwater is very harmful because it has pollutants in it like diesel, oil, microplastics, a lot of sediment, which can eventually kill a riparian area like Stony Run, one of the few green spaces that we have in Baltimore. Actually, just this evening, because of the storm, we have what we call on our block the storm watch, where if it starts raining, if it starts storming, everybody waits and they go outside and they take photos and they take videos of the runoff that's coming from the construction site. And then we send in our 311 reports to Baltimore City. We send them into the Maryland Department of the Environment. We send them to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And it's just exhausting to have to do this every single time it rains. And we've met with city leaders. We've met with city officials. We've had them come out to the site to see the stuff that's still there after it rains, to see the pollutants, like we have videos of it going directly into Stony Run. And one such meeting, we actually had our city council president, Zeke Cohen, come out to the site. And we told him, hey, this is what we're experiencing every single day. And these are our very real environmental concerns. You know, the city spent $10 million of taxpayer money repairing Stony Run so that we could have a healthy water system in Baltimore City, so that we could have a healthy harbor eventually as well. And he heard all our concerns and he basically said, I don't care. We're going to approve this project anyway, because I think that this is going to be good for Baltimore. So this whole project has really just opened my eyes to what the city is allowing Johns Hopkins to get away with and what they have in the past as well. Ultimately, I had to help found a nonprofit in Baltimore City so that we could sue Johns Hopkins to try to stop this project. But ultimately, this isn't just about one data center project. This is about our governor wants to ramp up data centers in Maryland, which is really scary because, you know, we unfortunately have all these rural communities who are facing terrible consequences of these data centers. And we have them as examples for what we don't want in Baltimore. And we have so many communities that are at risk that we know that they're going to try to build these data centers in. And I don't care that this is being built in my neighborhood. Like, that's not, I do care, but what I'm saying is it's not just that this is affecting my neighborhood. I don't want a project like this in any neighborhood in Baltimore. It doesn't belong in any community. While you fall under, regardless of what your economic station is in life, it doesn't matter. This is truly something that can unite all of us, and it's something that we should all be fighting against.
I'm absolutely distraught hearing about what you guys are going through. And I'm a crybaby. I'm also a crash out. And my messaging and my militancy in my area, I get a lot of critiques on it, but it's because of stories that I hear like this, where these people just do not care. And I just don't know what it will take and how many cuss words I have to spew out of my mouth to get these bozos to care. And I'm so spiritually connected to the earth, like it's part of my mental health practices, like how you guys talk about just wanting to sit outside with your family and sit outside with your parents. I'm with my baby boy right now, and all we do is just sit outside while I crochet. And I sit outside, I sit under my tree. I know I saw your baby too. I was trying to say hi. And I just, about the dead chickens and the dead ducks, like it sounds so dystopian. And if this is my future, I don't know what to do. And all I know is to fight like hell. And what we have been told, there's this district commissioner, he's the district commissioner of District 4 in Charles County. And we were at a I think it was a town hall meeting. And members of my coalition, I don't know if they directly addressed him. I don't know. But basically, he said that we have funding issues. He's made a stupid metaphor about a barn. This is the barn we're trying to build. And if you don't want to build the barn with us, then we're going to leave you behind and stuff like that. Just nonsense, ridiculous, nonsensical bull crap. And then eventually he said what has stuck with me is you're going to have to stay and fight. That's what he says as it relates to data centers. He said, you're going to have to stay and fight. This man is running unopposed in my county, and our governor, Wes Moore, endorsed him. Wes Moore didn't say it himself. He was supposed to be here in Charles County. I made a call to action about it. Excuse my language. He pussied out. He canceled it for unforeseen circumstances. And then just minutes before we start this call, I see that he had a private event in our county, and spoke to some of our district commissioners and Ralph Patterson, the man he endorsed, and Ralph Patterson's mother, Edith Patterson, who was a dinosaur elected official in this area. And yeah, it's been a fight. It's a lot of political manipulation. People have data center money in their campaign contributions, but they want to tell us they're not going to put a data center in our community. And people believe them, and people still vote for them. And it's just very frustrating. I'm very frustrated. I'm very emotional listening to you guys talk about what's happening. And I would hope if people who didn't look like me listen to you guys speak, they would take your concerns seriously. And I really hope that they do, because it's so dystopian what I'm hearing. And I have neighbors who have chickens. I'm a mile away from farmland. And that's what I love about this area. That's what I love about Charles County. I feel like a country girl next to a city, like 45 away from DC. Like, it's really weird, and I love it. And I love that I can play both sides. So yeah, it's a fight, and it's a lot of political manipulation. And I just hope that people don't listen to it. Right now, my biggest issue is being a loud, audacious Black woman speaking on behalf of the issue, and people not wanting to take me seriously and my concerns seriously. And that will be the detriment of our community.
The chicken thing, I had totally forgot until Craig mentioned it. My parents also had chickens, and oh my gosh, we had so many eggs, more than we could give away. And then all of a sudden, they just stopped laying one day. We quit getting eggs, and we had several to die too. And it's like, can you really believe this stuff? Like, is that really what happens to the community, or to the animals and stuff like that? And then you start hearing others say the same thing, and we don't know each other. I didn't know Craig. I didn't even know he had this issue till this call. And I had forgot that we had the same thing, so my parents had to get rid of their chickens. So a lot of things like that out here have also happened. Domestic animals dying. Cheryl can talk about this too. Again, it's some of those things that you don't really realize, and I think Craig spoke to some of this, the levels of the noise that are just not noticeable, like as we talk and communicate. It's that decibel level that you don't hear, and there's another doctor, I believe she's in Lisbon and she's done research on the vibrations and what those types of vibrations do to your inner body, and the way it calcifies cells and stuff like that. And I haven't even gotten into my mom's health issues that have evolved over the last 3 years. But, all of this they were fine. All of this just happened in the last 3 years. And so you just cannot tell me that it's a coincidence. There's too many of us that have the same going on,
So when infrasound hits your body, and it doesn't matter if it's an animal, it doesn't matter what living being it hits, it starts causing tissue damage to soft tissues. And it can be noise that's not even audible to the human ear. When one of my dogs started ripping her fur out until she was a bloody mess, I tried everything under the sun, worked with my vet, and I finally had to let go of her life. And, when you see this happening with your friends and your neighbors, and even, people in California or Maryland or Texas, it's heart wrenching. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a young woman, raising hell in Maryland, or you're an old lady in Texas raising hell. It's still not okay. It's still not okay to be harmed like this. It's just not.
Well, and like I hate to pile the misery and horror on, right? But I mean, I have to also mention that, like, I hear these kinds of stories in so many other parts of the country, right? That like we keep calling sacrifice zones, because like it's just areas where people are being left to live in conditions that threaten life itself. So who I heard, working class people like yourselves talk about this kind of thing? People in East Palestine, Ohio, and in the surrounding area in Ohio and Pennsylvania, when they blew up the 5 cars of vinyl chloride in those trains, and then they told everyone after that big toxic death plume blasted them all with toxins, they said, "Okay, you're fine, go back home." And it was because everyone's chickens and cats and it started dying that they were like, "We're not fine." The fish belly up floating down the rivers. They said, "You're telling us that's fine?" Right? They do this everywhere. And this is why I always tell people I feel like I'm investigating a serial murderer, because I hear the same stories coming out of the mouths of working people in so many different communities who are being polluted by this crap, who are being killed by this stuff. And we're all being set up for sacrifice, whether we voted for one party or another. So it's kind of like, what do we do about this as working people? Can this be what y'all have been, mentioning on this call? Can this be one of those things that really gets us to get over our differences and forces us to work together to fight this scourge that is coming for all of us? Let's talk about that in this final round, right? Because we have an incredible panel of folks who are fighting data centers and Bitcoin mines in Texas that are already there, and new ones that are being proposed. You folks here in Maryland who are seeing these data centers go up in Virginia and around the country, and you're trying to fight them in your area. So what can we learn from each other? And I guess going back to that central message in the introduction is like, what do we need to learn so that we don't fight this the wrong way? So that we don't get caught up in you're on the red team, you're on the blue team, you're in this state, so you deserve it, you're in that state, so you don't deserve it. Like, how do we get past that crap and actually fight this and win this? So let's go back around, and any sort of advice that y'all want to offer each other or anyone out there listening who may be dealing with this now or soon in the future.
When I started on this battle plane, I never once went up to somebody and said, "Are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? And I need you to listen to me." This is a humanity issue. It's a humanity issue all the way across this nation and into Europe. And so you're, like we had talked about before, if my next door neighbor, and I don't care who you are, if you come to me and ask me for help, if somebody's invading your home and you need me to come and help you, I'm coming to help you. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care if I have a big dog and you have a little dog. I don't care if you drive a red car and I drive a green one. I don't care. I'm coming to help you, because that's a humanity thing you should be doing, is caring about other people. And what the governor of Maryland is doing is the same thing that our politicians are doing all around the country, with very few exceptions, is you're not listening to your constituents remotely at all. And, excuse me.
You're so right. And, I come from a small rural town in Virginia, and really the only reason that I'm here today is because of mutual aid, because we had to talk to our neighbors. We had to ask our neighbors for help, whether we needed, clean water because our well at one point was infected by E. coli. Whether the food stamps run out. So we had to have one of our neighbors bring over some plates for us. And I think, we're living in a time where people are afraid to talk to their neighbors, but I know every single name of my neighbors in my neighborhood. Every single person. I knock on their doors all the time. I ask them how they're doing. I'm like the unofficial mayor of Remington at this point. They come to me with like every single issue, and I listen to them. And it doesn't matter what side of the board they're on. Like I'm disabled, I'm queer, definitely leftist. But if you come to me and you need help and this is a humanitarian issue, I will help you. And I think that this truly is something that can unite all of us, because this isn't just a human issue. This is a land issue. This is a water issue. This is animals. This is our environment. This is trees. It's everything. And that's something at the end of the day that we can all be united on.
And it's also our energy bills, right?
It's also our energy bills. That's right. Yeah. But also on the flip side of that, I'm sure that our governor in Maryland is going to say the same thing. And Micaiah can probably attest to this as well. They want to start building mini nuclear reactors with these data centers, which is just absolutely insane.
Little baby nuclear reactors.
Yeah, that's insane. It's completely untested tech. So I think another thing that we all need to start working on is when I see these data centers and the politicians who are approving them, what keeps connecting itself for me is that all of them are receiving APAC money. And I think we desperately need to elect officials who are not accepting any funds from APAC.
And you know what else we got to throw on here is we need to ask ourselves as working people, what is the payoff here? What are these data centers and Bitcoin mines giving to our communities? How are they helping us? Are they providing, all these jobs beyond a few construction jobs for the people who are building them? And then what happens to them afterwards? We get all these data centers and the payoff is that, all of our news feeds are filled with fake AI slop, that, AI is in all of our electronics, surveilling us, taking people's jobs, that they're using AI to bomb people in Iran and other parts of the world. What the hell do we want that for? And is that worth sacrificing our lives and communities and an environment to?
I think overwhelmingly, the first question that people have started asking themselves when someone proposes a data center for their town, the first thing that you'll hear these politicians and these developers say is, this is going to be so good for you. This is so good for the future. A future for who? Who is that future for? And the second people start asking that question, the whole thing falls apart, because it is not a future for us. There is no part of this that we have a future in. This is a future for them.
I would invite anybody to look into the Project Stargate in Abilene, Texas. It's about half the size of two of the proposed data centers for our Hood County, Granbury area. It's 1,100 acres. The one going next to me is 2,090. The one further down the street across from Dinosaur Valley State Park, which has dinosaur tracks in limestone that will erode away due to acid rain over time, is going to be about 2,100 acres or so. Anyway, that one is interesting in itself. And then next door to that is going to be one for Black Mountain Energy. And so as far as Project Stargate is concerned, there have been so many interviews with the sheriff, with locals that have proven that infrastructure, whether it's Texas, Maryland, wherever, we can't handle the construction infrastructure. Not only the construction infrastructure, the infrastructure for hotels, for rental, for housing, it's just not there. And we've been seeing over the past generation that home affordability is out through the roof. Rental affordability is out through the roof. And that is coming for our town if we don't fight and stop it. And so something that somebody proposed to me is just run for office. That is one way we can fight this, is if you have an open election coming up, run, because there are so many people that have recently been elected on this issue, whether you're red or blue, that are winning. We have an ag commissioner nominee that's a Democrat that is killing it because of this whole issue. And I am proud to say that, yes, I am excited to see somebody young, regardless of what party they stand for, that is standing for the beliefs that I believe in. And so that's one huge way. But the other thing too is if anybody is, questioning this, look at Abilene, because it is a perfect example of crime going through the roof. These are not just temporary construction jobs. These are jobs that are going to last 3 to 5 years. And then with those jobs, you're going to bring in all sorts of people that are looking for work, all sorts of backgrounds. The dust is going to be a huge issue. They spend about, 100 million gallons a day just spraying water to keep the dust down. And so traffic is a nightmare. It's abysmal. And so we're inviting this into every single neighborhood that has a proposed data center right now. Then, there's so many other issues we can tap into. I know we're restricted on time, but ideally, if there's something that we've been learning is learning your state's laws, if you have an Open Meetings Act, anything you can use, because the Bible says your sins will find you out. Numbers 23. Anyway, we have found so much dirt behind the scenes that we are using the courts for our advantage for. And whether our elected officials want to listen to us or not, at some point it's going to court. And we already have 2 of the data center campuses that were proposed that are now suing our county, that they're going to lose because of how they're trying to use and warp and distort the law. And then the other thing, follow the money. Greg Abbott, our governor, has received over $500,000 in donations from one single tech entity and a tech PAC. And so it's disgusting how much money tech is putting into whatever party will follow them and allow them to do this to us.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because after one of the last hearings that we had with the Board of Estimates in Baltimore City, they approved a big part of the project for DSAI. And then I think it was like a few weeks later after that decision, we saw campaign money from Johns Hopkins officials flowing into the pockets of the Board of Estimates people.
One thing that I would like to add to this is I have worked a little bit with a petition to recall the entire city council and the mayor except for one council member. And I have seen Republicans and Democrats working shoulder to shoulder on this issue. And I think that's what it needs to look like. We've talked a bit about politics here, and there are some pretty bad people that are in office, and there are pretty good people that are in office. And I want to say that just like the people that might be listening to this, they don't always know the details about how bad these data centers really are. And I want to give them time to learn, but they better hurry up, because we don't have time to wait for them to eventually figure this thing out. I don't want this to be a Republican-Democrat thing. I think that too much of our country talks in terms of politics. I really wish it would be more of, we're neighbors, we live in the same community, let's work together to make this thing happen. I heard Cheryl say that before, not today, but I've heard her say before, as a nurse, she doesn't ask somebody their political affiliation before she does. She helps them in an operating room. It doesn't matter to her. And when I look at another human being, it doesn't matter to me. If you need help, I'm going to try to help you. I don't care which side of the aisle that you're on. Now, I wish that this would be one of those things for everybody, that it just doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's coming for all of us. And if we don't all wake up and work together, we're lost.
I am radically black. I'm talk about everywhere I'm going. And my parents never talked to me about race for real when I was a little girl. They just let me, because I was just so whimsical. Like, I have stars tatted on my face. They're the Neverland stars, because like I just love Peter Pan. I don't ever want to grow up. And the world just beat me up. I played travel soccer, like I said before, so I was like mostly in all white environments. So I didn't get confidence until maybe like my freshman year of high school. My racial self-esteem was low, just a whole bunch of things. So when I look at the world, it's not that I'm trying to see racism, it's just what I see because I'm looking for myself and I never see myself. So me entering this organizing space, I blew it up. I blew it up and it was after I was at a planning commission meeting and they said, let's put all the data centers in the heavy industrial zones. I'm like, oh, that's where all the Black people are, isn't it? And it was. And so I went in my coalition chat and I'm just like, y'all, I'm about to blow these people up. I told them everything I was about to say. I said, I'm doing this on my own platform. I'm just letting you guys know. And it hasn't been good since. There's been a huge divide in our county, unfortunately, between people of the more southern part and people in the northern part of the county. So I would say if you're entering an organizing space, sometimes it is best to, for your mental health, I've just so many tears have been shed and it's been a waste of time trying to get people to understand me and my point of view. Sometimes you have to protect yourself and you have to organize with people who align with you more. But in terms of regular day-to-day conversations, no one who would talk to me would know about all of this crazy stuff I got going on in my head. I am a very personable person. All of my jobs have been more so like blue collar. So I'm in the service industry a lot. I love elderly people. I don't care what color you are. I love all people. And when I talk to people, I talk to them as if they're the only person in the world. Um, so you need to go out and you need to talk to your neighbors. One of my neighbors, I'm looking at their house right now. He voted for Donald Trump. I don't care. I didn't even know he voted for Donald Trump until like a year ago, but I've looked at this man face to face for 23 years of my life, and I wouldn't even have known. He's always very nice to me. When I walk my dog, he lets my dog poop in his grass as long as I pick it up. Like, it's just like you need to go out and you need to talk to people, and we have to find common ground. And we have to be able to listen to people. And class solidarity is so important right now. And there are poor white people in this area who have been silenced and who have been bamboozled into voting for people consistently who do not care about them. And I really hope that this issue wakes people up that all of these politicians lie and we need to follow the money. And if they have weird people in their campaign contributions, you should probably pay attention to that and you should stop making excuses for people. Um, and like Mr. Jackson said, like we need to start running for office. We have to, regular everyday people have to be in office. We have to clean sweep our government, our local governments. After, God willing, I'm praying that we will ban data centers by November. I'm praying we can bully Westmore collectively into banning data centers. And if that happens, we're clean sweep in the government. All of our local governments just need to be investigated because how did you allow this to happen? Why are you so susceptible to corruption? Why do you have an affinity for selling out your constituents? Why do you have an affinity for looking us in our face with attitude and lying to us and not taking our concerns seriously? Everyone has to leave. Everyone has to go. Everyone needs to be fired, as Donald Trump would say. All of them, you're fired. Like, everyone has to go. So I would say in terms of advice, get your boots on the ground. Get out, talk to the people you know. Get out and talk to the people you don't know. Start showing up to planning and district commissioner meetings. Go to your local government meetings. Look these people in their face. Oh, these politicians, I can tell they're scared when I walk in the room because they know I'm about to insult them. Start bullying these people. They really need to know that they work for us. And a lot of people don't like my language, but I don't like, at some point, like you have to stop caring and you have to really start embracing your own radical Black politic and start crashing out. And that's my advice. I feel like if we would all crash out, they would not act like this. We need to and I don't want violence to happen to anybody, but what they're doing is violent to us. The stories that I'm hearing, it's violence, it's terrorism to me. It's domestic terrorism. That's what I hear.
That's what it's like living here. It's like living in a war zone. It absolutely is.
That's what I heard. I listened to you guys' podcast about 2 times, and it's just so I could really understand everything. And it sounds like just a horrendous. I'm sorry. I know it's a beautiful place, but it sounds like a horrendous place to live. It sounds horrendous.
It is.
I'll be damned if that happens to my beautiful, I'll be damned. Oh my God.
And, people tell us all the time, just move. Well, my home and my property are paid for. I couldn't sell my home or property if I wanted to. And so what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
You stand and fight.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, and to follow up with Cheryl, like if I have to disclose there's a data center coming next door to me if I decide to sell my home. And we have a neighbor, their house has been sitting because it has to be disclosed. So you don't have a choice. I mean, the worst case scenario for me is Airbnb my house to data center employees, but where am I going to go? Because I grew up in Houston. And so I lived next to the highway. I know the highway noise, it's embedded in my DNA at this point. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's like you're living next to a highway that just will not stop. And there's nights, there's not a car on the road. Like I've literally walked over to the highway, like I say highway, Texas highway. There's not a car on the road, but you're hearing that droning constantly. And, the only way we are going to stop this is to not just educate politicians, but we need educated people to run for this. We need to stop just believing. So one of the things we've come across in our area is developers making false personas and going on Facebook groups to hype up all the positive benefits of data centers, or people who are invested in data centers going on and playing the positivity side. And as neighbors, one, you know your neighbors, you know who's true and who's not. But the reality is, we can only do so much on social media, but we need to be the louder voices, in all honesty. We need to be the voices of reason. And one of the things we see all the time is, you're on Facebook, you're using a data center. You're on TikTok, you're using a data center. And part of that education is there's a difference between an enterprise data center and a hyperscale data center. And what's coming in our areas is hyperscale, which is what we don't want. We've been using enterprise data centers for years. I used to work in a building that had its own data center within, and the room was constantly kept at 70 degrees, but you couldn't hear the fans because they sound walled everything. It didn't disrupt anything. It didn't use any water. It was all air cooled by air conditioning. This is an entirely different beast that we're fighting. And that's where the education outlet comes in. So if we just have smart people running, if we do more education, do what we can, be the voice of reason, not just the voice of opposition at the end of the day.
I think the level of secrecy and deception, I guess, I'm not a naive person, I deal with all sorts of people, and I love people too. I like to get to know different people, and I feel like we all bleed the same color red, and so we are all in our skeletal makeup, we have many things in common, as far as color, race, none of that matters, language. For me, one of the things that has been the most shocking is how people have just so easily lied and deceived, and a lot for the sake of money. There for a long time, we said out here that we were kind of the redheaded kids of Hood County, because and again, me and Cheryl, some of us have talked about this. There's quite a few of us that are in this fight that are very highly educated, but what they've done to this community is because of lower socioeconomic. I think Micaiah mentioned this about, the industrial part. in the city. That's a lot of Black people there. Well, out here, there's a lot of Hispanic people in our community, and they're not going to speak up for themselves for various reasons. I don't care if you're here illegally or undocumented or whatever. I have some wonderful neighbors across the street that I would go help in a heartbeat. The deception to pile this onto the communities like that, and to think that you can get away with it. It is, like you said, that sacrificial zone. It's showing me that there are some of us who are worth sacrificing for $1. There are some of us who, regardless of, let's look at that community. It doesn't look like it's very well deserving. Let's put it all there. And I don't know, I guess just the way that other human beings treat human beings is beyond me. I don't think that way. My heart is not like that. And so it's just really hard to comprehend the deception and the lack of transparency, and how so easily we can lie, and how we can sacrifice another human being for the sake of money. I cannot wrap my head around that. And that's part of why I want to keep fighting.
These are called the paths of least resistance, these specific neighborhoods, and it's microzoning and it's redlining. So for the audience, if there's a data center being proposed in your community, it's probably in a community that would have the pathway of least resistance. If we're in a state like Texas and we're worried about ICE, probably Hispanic people aren't going to speak up for themselves because they're scared. So yes, let's put it here. So we do need to pay attention to not only Black and brown people, but poor people as well, because they don't have the resources to fight for themselves.
100%.
You were right about that. What I have found recently is that I think even middle class people are no match for these data centers, because they have really deep pockets and they can litigate for forever. And I think a normal, everyday person is not going to be able to fight that, because they're going to take it to court and they will tie you up in court and they will take everything that you have and then some. Cheryl, I know that with yours, they were asking questions that they had no business asking you. So they were wanting everything, and the paperwork was just nonstop. So that's been my experience with these data centers.
We can also say it's expensive. We had to retain a lawyer, which costs $10,000 upfront, and it's not even probably the lawyer we're going to go with at the end of the day. There's several other communities that have gotten lawyers that it is expensive. So if there's any lawyers listening that want to help, we would appreciate the help. But at the end of the day, what it really is coming down to is money. And just, anybody that wants to take 5 seconds to Google Marathon Digital Bitcoin, they sold off a lot of Bitcoin and made a lot of money at the profit of this neighborhood. And it's frustrating because we don't receive any of that, but our property taxes go up, our electricity goes up, our water bill goes, like everything else goes up. Like we're fighting just for daily life, but yet they're profiting off the backs of our health.
All right, gang, that's going to wrap things up for us today. I want to thank our guests from Granbury, Texas, Cheryl Shadden, Karen Pearson, Craig Jackson, and Dr. Shannon Wolf. And I want to thank our guests from Maryland, Hillary Gonzalez and Micaiah Lloyd. This was such an important discussion, and this is such an important issue. And I'm so grateful to all of our guests for being part of this panel and for everything that they are doing to fight back for their communities. And of course, I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to thank you for caring about this. We'll see y'all back here next time for another episode of Working People. And in the meantime, go explore all the great work that we're doing at the Real News Network, where we do grassroots reporting that lifts up the voices and stories from the front line lines of struggle. Check us out across our YouTube channel, our podcast feeds, our website, and our different social media pages. And help us do more work like this by going to therealnews.com/donate and becoming a supporter today. I promise you guys, it really makes a difference. I'm Maximilian Alvarez. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Solidarity forever.
When my face you no longer see, I live on, yes, I live on. Wherever we go, we are going to roll the Union on. The song I live on, yes, I live on. Wherever hungry are we, just as hungry can be. The song I live on, yes, I live on. Where mean things are happening in this land, it's read a song, I live on, yes, I live on. Wherever the book mean things are happening in this land is read, I live on, yes, I live on. Wherever the videotape of me is shown, I live on, yes, I live on. If I have help to make this a better world to live in, I'll live on, yes, I'll live on. When my body is silent and in some lonesome grave, I live on, yes, I live on. When my songs and poems are read, I live on, yes.